Hi all, welcome and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to share some horrific stories with you about family fights that led to murder. They're sad and tragic reminders that you never know what is truly going on behind closed doors. And sometimes, the happy families we wish we were a part of and the happy couples relationships we see and wish we had for ourselves are actually anything but. Imagine being behind those closed doors and thinking you have the ideal family. Then, in one single moment, everything takes a dark turn. Let's begin in California on November 15th of 2023, where no doubt adorable 5-year-old twin boys were playing together at their home on Tucker Road in Scotts Valley in Santa Cruz County. According to police, who were called to the home around 4 p.m. that day, the boys began to fight, and one twin went to the kitchen for a kitchen knife. When he returned, the 5-year-old, let me say that again, since I can't believe the words that are coming out of my own mouth, the 5-year-old stabbed his twin brother. Emergency services were called to the home, and life-saving measures were used on the injured twin, but they were unable to save him, and he was pronounced dead at the hospital.
As we start with a tragic story out of Santa Cruz County tonight. Deputies say a 5-year-old stabbed his brother to death at a home in rural Scotts Valley.
Investigators say it happened when the twin boys were apparently fighting yesterday afternoon. KRON4's Dan Thorne live outside the sheriff's office tonight after talking with deputies there. Dan, bring us up to speed.
Yeah, Ken, tragic story tonight. Santa Cruz County deputies telling us that this 5-year-old used a small kitchen knife to kill his twin brother, but authorities are not pursuing charges in this case because of the boy's age and also because of lack of intent. Psychology experts say that little kids oftentimes get into fights and do not understand the consequences of their behavior, and it was evident in this tragic case. At a home down this private and remote road in Scotts Valley, an unthinkable tragedy unfolded. The Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office says a fight between twin 5-year-old boys turned deadly when one of them grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed the other.
It's really hard to blame anyone. I mean, children get into fights. Young 5-year-olds don't necessarily fully understand the implications of their behaviors. And every home has kitchen knives.
Santa Clara University psychology professor Thomas Plant says children that young are still learning to control their emotions. And sometimes when disagreements between little kids become aggressive, impulses can take over.
If you're having a fight with a sibling and you're in the heat of the moment and you just grab something that's nearby, in this case a knife, then bad things are going to happen. And certainly a tragic, fatal incident occurred.
Deputies say they responded to the home on Tucker Road around 4 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. Despite efforts to save the young boy's life, he died at a nearby hospital. The sheriff's office and the Santa Cruz County District Attorney are not pursuing charges in the case. Authorities say California law dictates that age, criminal intent, and knowledge of wrongfulness are factors needed to charge a child with a crime. Based on their current investigation, there is no indication of negligence or criminal activity. Dr. Plant says it's important for people to understand that this family is now having to cope with an enormous amount of grief.
I think we want to approach this situation with a lot of sympathy, with a lot of hopefully some compassion and certain degree of kindness, and not to be overly judgmental about this family.
The sheriff's office says that they share in the family's grief and they are heartbroken by this case, but they will not be releasing any more information about the family that is involved. Reporting in Santa Cruz, Dan Thorne, KRON4 News.
All right.
Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office says they are heartbroken for the family of 2 young boys. On Wednesday, just before 4 p.m., deputies responded to a home in unincorporated Scotts Valley. Officials learned that a 5-year-old boy stabbed his twin brother.
The 5-year-old was in an altercation with his 5-year-old twin brother. Unfortunately, the brother did obtain a knife, a small kitchen knife, and stabbed the other 5-year-old who ended up sadly passing away.
Authorities said the 5-year-old victim died at the hospital.
Through investigations, witness interviews, there was no negligence. This ended up being just a very tragic, horrific situation.
After investigators coordinated with the district attorney's office, no charges will be filed against anyone involved.
The fact that the sheriff's office came out so quickly and deemed this not a negligent situation suggests that this family was acting appropriately, that this was just a one-off, horrible, tragic event.
This story is horribly tragic. And not only have the twins' parents lost a child, but they're left with a 5-year-old child who has committed murder. And even though he more than likely doesn't understand death at his young age, or that stabbing his brother could mean he would never see him again, they have to take a good hard look at what made their 5-year-old go for a knife in the first place. Because in my world, 5-year-olds aren't allowed to use sharp knives, and they're taught and told over and over again not to touch them, because they could cut them and hurt them. And yet, that was what he went for as a solution to an argument with his brother. You could argue that he saw someone do that on TV or something simple as that, sure. But only his parents know his true nature. Was he a loving child who really had no idea what he was doing? Or did he have a violent nature and tended to hit and hurt his brother often? I've seen the 5-year-olds in my life lash out by hitting or throwing toys, which I think is just normal bad behavior that should be corrected. But I've never seen a 5-year-old go for a weapon when having a disagreement with another child. That's terrifying. So, even though there's no way to punish a 5-year-old legally for committing murder, what made him go for a weapon during a fight needs to be looked at. Hard. And what happens to the family now? There wasn't much information released about this case, so police didn't say if there are other siblings who live in the home. If there are other siblings, how do the twins' parents protect them now? How do his parents stay safe from him? Sleep with one eye open? Because even if they remove all sharp objects from their home, if there's a will, there's a way. And we parents know that if there's a way, a child will find it. Do they explain to him that he killed his twin at his young age? Or do they lie to him about what happened and wait to tell him when he's older and can fully grasp what he did? And what will that do to him? How will he ever attend school? Hide what he did from parents and let them send their children to school with a child who killed his brother? Police are not releasing the child's information because he's a protected minor, and I haven't seen the parents' names either. So it will be very easy for his parents to move somewhere new and start over again in a community who doesn't know what their son did. Which would be fine if they knew 100,000,000% that he would never do it again. But since they don't know why he did it in the first place, there are no guarantees. And because he's only 5, he cannot grasp the weight of what he did. So he can't carry guilt or understand how bad it was, so that it might prevent him from doing it again. His parents are in absolute hell, mourning the loss of their young son while trying to figure out how to get help for the other, and trying not to fear him in the process, because something gave him the instinct to go for the knife. That's not natural for a 5-year-old who's not allowed to touch sharp knives to do. Now, his parents are left with trying to understand where that instinct came from and whether or not they can help him get rid of it, or realize that they saw it in him all along. I pray for them that they can get him the help he needs, and that this doesn't just get brushed under the rug as a one-off accident like it's being described. Because going for a knife isn't an accident, especially when a child knows they aren't supposed to touch them. because they are dangerous and they can hurt him. It was because he was told that they were dangerous and can hurt him that gave him the idea to go for it during the fight. And that is what is so horrifying. I pray for him and his family. They are truly living a nightmare. But whether you believe this tragedy was an accident or not, this next tragic story was definitely not an accident. Even though the so-called mother involved would like police to believe it was. On November 8th of 2023, neighbors heard a mother cry out for help outside her Shepherdsville, Kentucky home after hearing gunshots coming from inside. When one of her neighbors responded to her cries for help, they entered her home and found her 2 young children, ages 6 and 9, dead in a bedroom from gunshot wounds. When police arrived on scene, the children's mother, Tiffany Lucas, told them she was the only one home with her children at the time and that their deaths were just an accident.
Neighborhood is stunned, now looking for the answers to an unthinkable crime. Police say 2 young boys were killed by their own mother. Tiffany Lucas was arraigned in court this morning, charged with 2 counts of murder, and she will be staying behind bars on $2 million bond. Our Connor Steffen and photojournalist Addie Hill take us to Bullitt County.
Just past the Jefferson-Bullitt County line.
You don't expect this, no matter where you live.
A community is grappling with the tough loss of 2 young lives. From neighbors who knew them,
Just put yourself in these people's place and think, well, it can happen to anyone. And
to officers who tried to rescue them.
I'll give you the cliche answer first. It's part of the job, but it's the part that you dread. The part that you hope that you go your entire career and never see.
Officers arrived at this home on Bentwood Drive around 11 Wednesday morning, where they rushed 2 young boys just 6 and 9 years old to the hospital.
They were alive and remained so until they got to the hospital.
Police believe this woman, 32-year-old Tiffany Lucas, shot and killed her 2 sons. She's charged with 2 counts of murder. At this time, the Bullitt County Sheriff's Office is not sharing any information on the moments leading up to the shooting or what Lucas's motive may have been. Right now, she remains in custody at the Bullitt County Detention Center.
Whether you think it's mental illness, just pure evil, combination of both, pick your poison. None of it's good. The result is horrific.
It's hard to underscore the deeply somber feeling right now in this area. Neighbors tell us it was just yesterday that they saw the boys playing out front in a yard.
Been living here since 2004.
For this longtime neighbor who asked we don't show his face or share his name. How do you think the neighborhood's reacting? Have you talked with neighbors about this?
I talked to a couple of neighbors, and they're kind of upset that they find out 2 little boys got shot. That's kind of upsetting. Nobody back here wanted to hear about kids getting shot. Nobody wants to hear people getting shot at all.
It was shocking, actually. Nobody ever thinks it's going to happen in your neighborhood.
As a Bentwood Drive house stands empty tonight.
Just love your family and hope nothing like this ever happens to anyone else.
Those mourning the loss are looking past the act of what happened.
Those kids went to schools. Those kids had friends. Those kids had families.
And keeping close to their hearts, the 2 young lives taken too soon.
Y'all having a good time?
Oh, look at those little baby angels. They are what's trending in true crime. Their mother faced a judge just days after she was accused of fatally shooting her 2 boys to death. 32-year-old Tiffany Lucas is her name. That's her right there. Look at her. Charged with 2 counts of murder, appeared in a Kentucky courtroom Tuesday. She's accused of murdering her 6 and 9-year-old sons, those beautiful boys. Police say she shot them both in the head. How disgusting is that? Those 2 boys were found by a neighbor. They were covered in blood in the home that they shared with their mother, the person who was supposed to be protecting them. Those little slain siblings were rushed to a nearby children's hospital and sadly did not survive their injuries. And Lucas's Facebook page portrays her as a loving mother who just coordinated Star Wars-themed Halloween costumes for her and her boys. Look at this. There's a picture of them recently. As more details are coming out of her past, we're learning about a drug possession conviction. And our question this morning, how did she have custody of these kids? We know there were some new details we learned in that Tuesday preliminary hearing for Tiffany Lucas. Detective Richard Beal was the only witness of the day, and he testified about what Lucas told police after the shootings. Take a look.
I asked Miss Lucas if she meant to hurt her children, and she indicated that it was an accident. Quote, it was an accident, end quote. She also made some comments such as, quote, I'm in such a bad spot, end quote. Quote, I'm so stupid, end quote. End quote, I would never do anything like this unless someone manipulated me, end quote.
But family members of the two precious boys say it was no accident and that Lucas knew exactly what she was doing.
In the disturbing case out of Shepherdsville, the mother accused of killing her two boys in Bullitt County, Tiffany Lucas, appeared in court today, and a detective from the sheriff's office shared new details. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shay McAllister.
And I'm Doug Proffitt. Today in court, it was revealed she told detectives the shooting was an accident. She's charged with the murder of her two boys. Ian Hardwick and photojournalist Alyssa Newton have more on the testimony, and we're talking to family members.
They should both be here today in school, going to school, learning, playing sports.
Maurice Baker Jr.'s stepmother, Michelle Rice, and Bobby Baker, his aunt, gather outside the Bullitt County Judicial Center.
How do you accidentally shoot a kid 2 times and then shoot their brother? How do you do that? It's no.
There's no
we're
accident.
Not accepting that.
It's not mental illness. She knew it. She did.
Had options.
Detective Beal's testimony brought the hearing back here to the scene of the crime. He says another officer arrived to find a neighbor tending to the boys who were shot in the head, and that Lucas was outside in a nearby driveway. Lucas's defense asks the detective if the sheriff's office tried to detect any drugs in her system.
Are you aware of any kind of toxicology screening or drug screening my client may have participated in between the time of her arrest and now?
The detective answers no after the defense motions to preserve and review the evidence collected by the sheriff. Judge Jennifer Porter approves and leaves Lucas's bond unchanged at $2 million. Although court ends for the day, it's just the beginning for the family's mourning 2 special lives lost.
We're going to be here every time, every step of the way. And we're going to make sure that we bring justice for these boys.
Justice, the grieving stepmother says, is the death penalty. In Shepherdsville, Ian Hardwick, WHAS 11, on your side.
And the judge ruled there was probable cause to bring Lucas's case to trial. The next time she'll appear in court, it'll be before a grand jury.
Needless to say, I'll be siding with the grieving family members on this one. I think convincing a jury killing her 2 boys was just an accident is going to be a hard sell for Lucas, considering most jurors have brains and know that her gun didn't just accidentally get shot in the exact direction of each of her boys' heads. Unless, of course, she's lucky enough to get the jury from the Casey Anthony case, in which case she'll have no problem convincing them that she had nothing to do with their murders, even though she was the only other person home at the time. But if she gets a jury with brains, and she shows no emotion in court like she has been since her arrest, she's done for. I'm glad she's not smart enough to know that her emotions need to match her words. It'll only help the jurors to see her for who she really is, and they can convict her all the quicker. Those precious boys deserve justice, and their family who love them need to know that their evil mother will never be free to hurt another human being again. I pray God sends them the strength to get through this horrible tragedy. But unfortunately, Tiffany Lucas was not the only mom to lose her mind and kill her children. According to officials at the Eisenhower military base in Georgia, one of their soldiers, Staff Sergeant James Short, received a chilling text message to his phone from his wife at home around 8 a.m. on November 15th of 2023. They said her text made references to God and stated, "The days of darkness are upon us." Worried about what was going on at home, Short tried to call his wife, but she didn't answer. So, he went home to check on his family and found his wife barricaded in a bedroom with his 3 children. When he was unable to gain access to his children, he called 911 for help. Military police said they were able to coax April out of the room, but when she came out, she tried to run, getting into her car and trying to drive away with the 2 older children. As police stopped her outside and rescued the children, April's husband ran inside to find their youngest child. And he found him, his 11-month-old son, in the bathroom, wrapped in a plastic shower curtain, with his neck slit. The baby was rushed to the hospital with life-threatening wounds, and he was pronounced dead shortly after arriving. Police did not say if April injured her other 2 children, ages 11 and 6, in any way, but police said when they interviewed her after her arrest, she admitted to slitting her baby's throat. When police interviewed the children, the 6-year-old told them their mother got knives and told the children she was going to help their baby brother go be with Jesus and God. The child also told police their mother told them not to go into the bathroom because it might be really scary. Police said April told them she knew what she was doing was wrong and evil. She made her first court appearance since her arrest, but has not yet entered a plea. She's been ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. Thank God the other children survived, but according to the 6-year-old, they almost didn't. Because April threatened to cut their throats also if they didn't stop crying. So she was prepared to kill all of their children that day. I can't even begin to imagine how terrified those children must have been, and their father receiving that chilling message and racing home to find out if his children were okay, only to find that he got there too late to save his infant son. How horrific and tragic. And there hasn't been much more reported, so there's no way to know if April showed signs that she was losing her mind before she slit her baby's throat or not. And how much therapy will these children need to learn to cope with what they witnessed that day? I can't even imagine. They are 6 and 11, and their little lives have been upended and torn apart. Their baby brother is dead, and they know their mother killed him. They were all alone in that house, watching their mother descend into madness, not knowing how to help their baby brother or how to help themselves. And had she not sent that chilling text message to her husband to warn him that something bad was happening, God knows what would have happened to those children. That family needs our prayers, especially those precious children who will probably never completely feel safe with anyone who cares for them ever again. And as if those stories weren't disturbing enough, I have one more for you. Police in El Monte, California were called to a home on Rachito Street for an assault and possible homicide. But they could have never prepared themselves for the horror they came upon when they arrived. Bloody footprints outside led them to 25-year-old Kimberly Gonzalez, who was covered in blood after brutally stabbing her mother to death. But when police found her mother in the home, they found that she wasn't just stabbed. She was also decapitated. They searched for her mother's head and found it, thrown in a trash can outside the home.
A young woman remains in custody tonight, facing charges for allegedly stabbing her mother to death in a house in El Monte.
The victim had multiple stab wounds and was reportedly also decapitated.
Eyewitness News reporter Leanne Suter is there live with the very latest on this tragic story. Leanne.
Javon and Mark, detectives describing the crime scene as extremely graphic. That victim stabbed multiple times. A mother allegedly murdered by her own daughter. A tragic case on so many levels.
A gruesome discovery captured by Air 7 as detectives remove what appears to be the victim's head from a trash can. Neighbors say she'd had her throat slit, apparently decapitated. The suspect, her own daughter.
There's blood on that side, there's blood on the floors.
The horrifying scene unfolding just before 5 Sunday evening at this El Monte home. The victim's brother, who lives in the front house, says he heard a scream and then his 11-year-old nephew ran out yelling for help. His shirt soaked with blood after apparently witnessing the grisly scene. He says maybe they argued, but to tell you the truth, I don't know. Friends say the suspect, 25-year-old Kimberly Gonzalez, struggled with drugs. Her mother, Jacqueline Perez, was raising her 2 grandchildren as well as Gonzalez's 3 siblings.
She was a really good mom. She was a great mom. She was a really good mom. She had just a new 3-year-old. She had a new baby.
Decorations from a child's birthday party Saturday still hanging as detectives canvass the crime scene. Neighbors say they heard a commotion. One woman crossing paths with the fleeing suspect.
She was coming out, and then she rushed back in because she saw somebody running that way, saw the cops coming this way.
A path of bloody footprints led out onto the street where neighbors say Gonzalez was hiding between 2 cars. That's where she was taken into custody. She's being held on $2 million bail.
It's horrifying to hear that an 11-year-old child witnessed the horrific attack. And seeing birthday decorations hanging at the scene is absolutely chilling. Reports say Gonzalez's mother was raising her children for her because she had a drug problem. And that was how she repaid her, by brutally killing her. Who will take care of her children now? Not to mention her siblings her mother was also caring for. And I couldn't find any updated reports about why Gonzalez attacked her mother, or what happened to the children. All I read about was that Gonzalez refused to leave her cell to go to court. But any children who were in that house at the time of the murder cannot be okay after what they saw and heard. And will they ever be okay again? Their mother and grandmother was brutally murdered in their home, their safe haven. I can't imagine they could live there now. And they probably lost the one person in their life they knew would care for them. They went from celebrating a birthday to mourning the death of a loved one, probably in a matter of hours. And the murderer was somebody they no doubt loved. This story is unreal. All of these stories are. I'll be praying for all the victims, that they find the strength to get through all of these horrific tragedies. As always, I thank you for watching. I hope you all stay safe out there, and I'll see you on my next video.